don't profess to have the answers. I'm just here to ask questions. Welcome to the Offshoot. I'm your host, Sean Nelson. Autism. We don't hear much about it, and it seems to be growing in families who are silent about their young ones who are autistic or who are on the spectrum. Today, we have a very special guest, a family member of mine, who will be talking about his fourth child who is on the spectrum. Ira Perry, welcome to the Offshoot.
Hey, thank you, sir. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. I'm very humble that you wanted to come on and discuss this because I do feel like when it comes to young people on the spectrum, and there are some adults as well, there isn't much that's out there. There isn't much that's talked about, especially when it comes to people of color, Black Americans. So you
Right.
have four children. Your youngest is eight.
No, no, we have a blended family and we have nine. And this is the youngest that my wife and I have together. She is the youngest of nine siblings. So,
Wow.
um,
Okay.
it's,
All right. Let me scratch it. I'm
I gotta
gonna.
say that so I don't get any trouble.
So,
Okay.
okay. So, Ira, you are a father of nine, okay, a blended family, and you and your wife, your youngest daughter is on the spectrum. Tell
Mhm.
us a little bit about her age. How did you learn that she was on the spectrum, and how
Sure.
has that changed things for you and your wife?
Absolutely. First, I want to thank you for having me. I think it's a noble undertaking that you're following through with. So I salute you for hosting this platform, and I certainly do appreciate it. But to to start, you know, autism is has been typically and historically been the the issue in the shadows that, oh, she's special or he's special.
Mhm.
And keep them in the back room and they don't talk about it. But um after um our youngest daughter, Journey, who's 3 years old now, after Journey was born, everything was fine. It was a normal delivery.
Mhm.
Um, and we noticed around her first birthday, 18 months, when you're kind of expecting words to start coming, they didn't come. And my wife and I just looked at each other and we just, okay, well, she's just a late bloomer. She's just not talkative. And it just, it grew into this concern that we had. And then we knew that we needed to seek some external guidance and to get some medical assistance. So we did that. We reached out um, to the to the medical community. Um, and let me say this, it is very, very difficult. Like there are so
Mhm.
few resources. And to give an example, um, we had a meeting today with a service provider that is going to help with some of Journey's developmental challenges. We've been on the waiting list for over a year.
Wow.
So that tells us that the support element isn't capable of keeping pace with the demand,
Yeah.
and the demand is rising. Um, the they don't really definitively communicate the causes of autism. Certainly, it's
Mhm.
genetically inherited. Um, but there are things in our society that perpetuate some of the issues, particularly the behavioral and neurological development aspects,
Yeah.
where and all of the medical professionals, and I'm not a doctor and I don't claim to be, but
Mhm.
certainly because I'm a parent and I'm constantly observing Journey and constantly attempting to communicate with her and evaluating certain risk factors and how those factors impact her. So, that gives me, I would say, some semblance of street credibility because I live with an
Yeah.
autistic.
Well,
And go ahead.
no, okay. So we do want to get there, but before we go down that path, in terms
Mhm.
of what it's like to be a parent with an autistic child and the challenges that you and your wife currently face and have faced, let's go back and again start with Journey herself, then who she is, as a little girl, and what is life like for her.
Sure. Sure. So she's 3 years old. Um, she can essentially, and she's on the milder end of the spectrum, where there are some kids who have severe autistic and developmental challenges, whereas
Mhm.
Journey can do everything that a normal 3-year-old does,
Yeah.
everything except talk. She's nonverbal. Now, she does have a limited vocabulary, but that aspect of her is probably the only part that we would declare or determine to be off a normal child's development.
Yeah.
Um,
And
she
sorry,
bad.
I'm
She
sorry, go ahead.
can. She's bad. She can have tantrums. She can. She's obedient at times. Most of the time, she's obedient. She's cooperative.
Okay.
And there are some techniques that we as parents, we're learning, that, we can apply that work for her. And then there are some things that we just were blindsided. Like we didn't know that, certain open areas where there are lots of people,
Hmm.
and lots of background noise, they affect her. Like
Yeah.
um, we were in Jamaica and there was a loud restaurant, and I'll never forget. She had an episode, and all she could say was "Mommy,
Mhm.
Mommy," and my wife is holding her,
Yeah.
and my wife is attempting to comfort her, but it was almost like watching someone that you love in this heightened state of panic, and there's nothing you can do, and a lot of parents deal with this day in and day out.
Yeah, it's the anxiety that comes from being in an unfamiliar environment. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's it. So, but taking a step back from that, there's nothing that we could have done that caused this condition,
Yeah.
this diagnosis for her. It's not my wife's fault. It's not my fault.
Yeah.
It just, we have 8 other children, and none of them had to deal with this particular challenge. They've got their own challenges, but not this one in particular.
Yeah.
Um, and it's important that, you communicate that because there may be folks in the audience who, may have this guilt conscience and they feel like it's, somewhat their fault. And, it's important to know that it's not their fault. It just,
Yeah.
the
I
way
mean,
life happens.
exactly. And just so you all know, the audience, autism is known clinically as autism spectrum disorder, and it's a
Yes.
neurodevelopment disorder
Mhm.
characterized by differences and difficulties in social communication and interaction, a need for predictability, sensory perception differences, focus, interest, and repetitive behaviors such as stymie. So you just described some of the things that you experienced while in
Mhm.
Jamaica. And I think a lot of parents who have children who are on the scale can relate to that.
Mhm.
But it's also very interesting is that you are here as a Black man, a Black father, and
Mhm.
we don't often hear about fathers, particularly Black male fathers, taking the lead when it comes to their child who are on the spectrum. So
Mhm.
I first want to commend you for that, but I also know you, and that's not something that you would have this to begin with, because that's who you are.
Mhm.
So, what are you experiencing or running into as a father when it comes to trying to get what is needed for Journey and to get the help that she needs?
Mhm. Terrific question. And in hindsight, I wish that we'd scheduled this session and I'd have my wife sitting beside me because she has so much insight, so much
Yeah,
perspective um, that she could add to this conversation. But as a African American man dealing with this particular suite of challenges, the first thing that I noticed is the lack of numbers, the lack of support personnel. Like
Hmm.
there's such a shortage. Like there's no reason in the world why it should take you a year to get a meeting with a service provider. A
Yeah.
year? I mean, a year. We had the meeting today, and my wife would tell you that we scheduled this probably in March of 2024. So
Oh,
well over a year. So the first thing that I noticed is the lack of resources, and it's not that it's not the fault of the people who are there. They're
yeah.
just so underfunded, and there's just such an underrepresentation of the people who need these services that
Yeah.
they just go, unfunded, under budgeted, and you can only fit, so many people into your
Hmm.
pipeline until you just get these waiting rooms and the waiting list, and the next thing you know it's 12, 13, 14 months
Yeah.
until your number comes up. But I mean, I just think it's absurd that you'd have to wait this long to get seen by a professional.
Are the resources that are needed, are they needed in the medical profession, in healthcare systems? Are they needed in the educational systems, school systems, or both?
Well, I think Journey's three, right? So we don't have visibility per se into the school system yet. We do know that, when we approached daycare centers, daycare providers, we were told that, well, we don't take time out for children who require additional attention. Well, that's a death sentence to an autistic child. Like you can't just put them in a class with regularly developed children and expect them to keep up and expect them to maintain order, or expect them, like the expectations are woefully um, misdirected if you're expecting, the child to sit in a chair and to
Mhm.
follow instructions and to march to the same cadence as other normalized children.
Yeah,
So,
because
you
one
know,
of these,
it's
because one of the traits is that they like to focus. They like to be very detail oriented.
yeah, yeah, and it
And that's a
takes.
positive thing in a lot of ways.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. So, you know, again, there are so few resources as a whole. And you couple that issue with the rising number of autistic diagnoses,
Hmm.
and you come up with a really, really troubling statistic and issue that has to be addressed here in the future. I was speaking with a colleague of mine,
Hmm.
and she was just commenting to me. She's from the island of Puerto Rico, and she was just mentioning that the number of autistic cases in on the island of Puerto Rico is skyrocketing.
Hmm.
And there are things that in our society that are happening that are directly contributing to the increases of those numbers, particularly the nutritional community, where you've got uh, the amount of poisonous and toxic chemicals that are in our food, that
Yeah.
are in our drinking water, that are in our beverages. It's at an all-time high. And then the literally the cherry on top is the amount of sugar that our children are ingesting. It is just phenomenally high. And then the television programs that our children are watching, like some of the more popular ones right now, they're so good at what they do that they're hurting the children. Every brain surgeon
Hmm.
and neurological specialist would tell us, hey, minimize the screen time for your children, whether that be the television, whether that be your tablets or your cell phones,
Yeah.
because the refresh rates for these devices for these shows that are geared and targeting young, small children, the refresh rates happen so quickly that the children's brains don't have a chance to form and complete formation because they're constantly updating. It's like you're constantly seeing a new image and your brain is refreshing and updating. So it
Yeah.
disrupts the developmental process. So, we think that there are some significant uh, technological opportunities that offer a chance for parents to have alternatives to those types of programming. And those are the things that, my wife and and my team are championing to help in the end of this year and going into 2026.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I do want to talk about technology, and it seems like technology, particularly AI, artificial intelligence, might be a way to help children who are on the spectrum assimilate more easily and more quickly into society where they can have that communication, where they can
Mhm.
also still be focused and have attention to detail, but not be so anxious or have the anxiety triggered when
Mhm.
something is going off in the background. So, let's talk about technology and autism and what is
Sure.
out there. So, what is out there in terms of, or what's on the rise when it comes to technology and how that technology, particularly AI, is going to play in the development of children with AI? I mean, with development of children with autism.
Sure, sure. So, and this is clearly, my soapbox. I have spent the better part of the last year um, working with my team. I own a small information technology consulting firm, and we've pivoted and jumped wholeheartedly into artificial intelligence. And there are ways and there are things that we have created and developed that
Hmm.
we think will add value right out the gate. Now, let me say this, the current suite of services that are offered aren't bad. It's just
Yeah.
not enough. There's not enough availability. So what my team and I have done is we've made a commitment to leverage artificial intelligence to create automated access to things like the applied behavior analysis or the ABA program, for instance, which is a nationally recognized, nationally
Hmm.
approved program that caters to and addresses autistic and special needs children. And what our product and what our capabilities are is to take that process, the applied um, behavior analysis platform, and our AI learns the ABA process, and now we're able to reference that in a digital avatar, and now we can take and create opportunities where there's a shortage of staff. Now we can create digital avatars who can stand in the gap and provide the analytics that enable the professionals to assess the degree of
Of the
difficulty
spectrum.
to determine where the children are on a spectrum. That in and of itself can shorten the
That's a game
pipeline.
changer.
Right, right. That in and of itself can shorten the pipeline dramatically. So, it's a problem set that is significant, and we're not trying to say that we're the end all be all, right? We're
Mhm.
just working to address one portion of the problem set. And as we grow and continue to immerse ourselves, obviously we're going to be able to address more of those issues.
Okay, so that I understand. So right now, it takes a while for professionals to diagnose where a child is on the spectrum. And what
Yeah.
you and your wife are working on, or some others, are this AI platform that would allow professionals, that would assist professionals in earlier diagnosis for young people. And I'm assuming that with an earlier diagnosis, from there, you can start all kinds of treatment that will help the child develop
Exactly.
sooner or be on par with their peers.
Exactly. Exactly. And this is clearly our soapbox. Klongen.ai is our site. KLONGEN.ai. Klongen.ai is our
Uh,
site. That
Okay.
you can go and get more information about this.
As a parent of an autistic child, you know the challenges of keeping them engaged throughout the day. You want learning to be interactive, exciting, and tailored to their needs, but it's difficult being their only source of engagement. That's where Clone comes in. This AI-powered holographic projector brings their favorite faces, yours, teachers, or avatars, into real-time interactive lessons. It adapts to their unique learning style, keeping them focused while giving you a much-needed break. Education should work for your child. And for you. Let Clone help. Learn more today and transform learning for families like yours. Innovating education, empowering every child.
All of our handles, social medias, klongen.ai.
Hmm.
This is our passion. This is what we do. And our goal is to just give parents a, a breather. We're not trying to fix everything because that's impossible. You can't
Yeah.
boil the ocean. But what we can do is lend a helping hand to help. And that's what we're doing.
Okay, because you are personally invested in this community of autism,
Oh, absolutely.
right? Yeah. Mhm.
Absolutely. Yeah. So,
And how personally
we're
invested are you?
well, I mean, we are our own customer, right? Like, the things, the technologies that we're developing, the platform, is something that, we're using at home. And, we're not just, taking Journey away from the world. We're just
Yeah.
hoping to enhance what's already there. And, like I said, we just had the meeting today that we've been waiting for 14 months.
Yeah.
So we don't want to just sit on the sideline and just
Wait.
bide our time and do our bid while, our child just sits there needing help. So this is us standing up, rolling up our sleeves and saying, you know what, we can do something. And this is what we're endeavoring to do.
Yeah. And just to be clear, so what you're doing is different from, say, giving your child an iPad or iPhone and using that as a tool to help them. So what Clone Gen, your organization, is doing to help parents with children who are autistic, to help the kids themselves. Okay. You two are trying to, like you said earlier, first is help professionals come up with their early diagnosis. Okay.
Yeah,
But there's also an educational aspect as well, because like you said earlier about the avatar
right.
that's going to help the young person, help your journey and other children. Okay.
Yeah.
So can you give me more specifics about the differences between primitive technology like these
The
apps you
tablets
and
and
tablet
absolutely. So,
and versus
so the
AI
tab,
and 3D and holographic technology?
Yeah, so the like I said, before, your tablets, your cell phones, your televisions, the refresh rates are dangerous to the neurological development of children.
Yeah.
And the platform that we have developed is one where we have leveraged holographic technology, holographic projection technology, more specifically, and coupled that with the creation of a generative and agentic artificial intelligent agent. And that essentially means a smart search engine that has a digital representation of a human.
Yeah.
Essentially, what that means is the idea was if my wife was in the kitchen cooking and Journey is in the living room playing, our technology is a digital application that sits on your phone
Hmm.
that connects to a holographic projector. And this holographic projector will project the image and likeness of my wife. It will replicate her voice and it sounds like her.
Hmm.
And then there's a there's a learning model that we are able to customize and calibrate that speaks explicitly to Journey and entertains her and goes through the ABCs and the one, two, threes and does it at a pace that's comparable to what she would get if she was sitting in an ABA class. That's the applied analytics piece.
And so people should be clear and understand that what this is that when it comes to children who are autistic, what they need is that familiarity. So that's what you're doing. So basically, you have your wife, you have yourself, and you're going to have that digital projection, if you will. But
Mhm.
what the child needs is that consistent familiarity with the person that they are engaging with.
Sure.
That's the difference
But-
with what you're doing versus something that you're going to get on a tablet or a phone. Is
Well, it's a couple of differences, right? Because number one, the refresh rate for a holographic projection isn't the same. Looking at a holographic projection isn't the same as looking at a television screen
yeah.
or a mobile device or a cell phone, right? The refresh rate isn't as disruptive to the neurological development as those other devices, as those primitive devices are.
Yeah,
The
because
next thing is
kids they process things differently.
correct, correct. So the next difference in the delineator is the notion that now we've got artificial intelligence where you're talking to a computer,
Mhm.
but it's not a computer. It's cloaked and it looks like a human being. It looks like someone that you can have a conversation with.
Because
However,
yeah, because the
on the
kids
back end
think
is
that
artificial intelligence. So
yeah,
it's as smart as the internet.
yeah.
Everything on the internet that's available, she knows about. And she's able to foster conversations to the point to where, based on the different promptings, she can drill down and have discrete, to the point discussion.
So how can AI impact the autistic community?
It's a workforce multiplier where the number of available professionals who have to sit through hours and hours of training
Mhm.
to get certified.
Yeah.
Now, day one, our artificial intelligent agents have the requisite knowledge and even more because of all of the access to the information that they have. And then they're able to conduct those types of assessments where you can only be in one place at one time if you're a therapist, a behavioral therapist.
Yeah.
Well, our AI technology can can dispatch thousands of agents at once. So whereas you could only have one therapist seeing 8 patients a day,
Hmm.
our technology enables you to do as many licenses as you purchase. You could have 1,000 agents, and
Yeah.
they could each see 12 patients a day because they don't get tired. They don't need to go to lunch. They don't need any off days. So they could literally work from 7 in the morning to 7 in the evening, 7 days a week. So just the notion that the workforce multiplication would
Hmm.
dramatically impact the scheduling of the diagnoses, which would directly impact the scheduling of the treatments, which would shorten the amount of time that parents have to wait for their children to be seen, which would ultimately impact the amount of time that it would take the children to be nurtured and hopefully rehabilitated to be normalized into society.
And I'm assuming that because it's AI, and AI, of course, is or can be a learning tool and evolve. I'm assuming that
Oh
as the
yeah.
child gets older, the platform also evolves along with the as the
Oh,
child.
absolutely. It grows with the child. It grows with the child, and it gets easier as they get older because they get better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what challenges are you facing right now in terms of trying to help other parents come on board to find this new tool, to use this new tool to help their children who are on the spectrum?
Well, the biggest challenge right now for us is just finalizing our initial design. Like we've got the proof of concept done, and we plan to have the prototype here released in the next probably 30 to 45 days.
Hmm.
Um, and then it's just a matter of just, getting, exposure to what we can do and what we're capable of,
Yeah,
and just allowing the world to, gain insight into, what's possible.
yeah. Are minority groups disproportionately affected when it comes to autism?
Well, I mean, socioeconomically disadvantaged people at large, find out about things late. So this is, the autistic community, the special education community at large
Hmm.
are just a microcosm of society in general. So, the idea that, there's a 12-month waiting list for everyone,
Hmm.
and it's just exasperated when you got people of color who have language barriers, or language challenges where, okay, it's tough for people of color, but imagine having an autistic Latino child.
Hmm.
Now you're just it's that much worse, because now you're not just waiting for a behavioral specialist to get on the schedule. Now you have to have a specific behavioral specialist who's bilingual.
Yeah,
And our technology addresses that issue, because now we can program it to speak any number of, 50 languages.
yeah,
And she can learn it like that. And the translation is instant and it's fluent, and there's no loss of translation in the process.
yeah, yeah. So, what is out there in terms of the government? Is there support, federal, state, or local?
Um, I think on a federal level, is woefully under budgeted. And then on a state level, there are dollars, but there are so few resources
Hmm.
that that and when I say resources, I mean there's so few educational therapists
Yeah.
and behavioral specialists. It's just they don't have enough time in the day. I mean, if you got an office and you've got, 10 specialists, the best that you're gonna do is get to see 80 people on any given day. And that's just if nobody's going to lunch and they come to work every day without fail. So, it's just a numbers game when you come to the state. I think the county level, I think they're trying to do things, but again, it's always a numbers game. So, what we're hoping to do, what we're planning to do, and posturing and positioning ourselves to do is to be recognized as a training partner, so that organizations, like the school system and the different um, uh, school districts can take advantage of our tech. And that's the beautiful part about us. Like, once you purchase our platform, it's it's deployed, and now you've got a workforce multiplier that goes to work for you, doesn't get tired, doesn't ask for any time off, doesn't have any bad days. It's just consistent and just does the job day in and day
Hmm.
out.
I love how you've taken on something to help your daughter, and it has become an opportunity for entrepreneurship. And
Yes.
again, something that, again, as people of color, Black men, the Black community, people tend to think that, oh, we're not creative, we're not innovators, but we are, probably more so than any group of people in this country. Um,
We have to be proficient and talented at what we do, because we don't have an alternative. Like,
yeah,
I saw a hoodie in the store the other day and it said, "I am the backup." And that's kind of, who we
yeah,
are as African American men. We are the backup. Like, there's no sense in me running from a fight at the park. Like,
mhm.
who am I gonna go home and get? Myself? So, that's one of those things where, I wish that I'm looking forward to days when platforms like yours have the global exposure that you deserve, because it gives an opportunity to shine a spotlight on those things and those issues that matter most, like what we're talking about tonight.
Yeah, thank you. And I agree with that 100%. And autism, like I said, you don't see in corporate media a Black man being the voice for their family or their child who has autism, and you have this platform, this technology, AI, that could be beneficial to the entire world. Now, if I'm not mistaken, about 1% of the population is autistic. I think that's like
Mhm.
1 in 100,000, right?
Yeah, yeah, about
About
one in 110,000.
100,
Yeah.
okay, yeah. So to help folks understand that number, and it's growing, right? It is growing.
Mhm. It's
Okay,
increasing.
it's increasing. Okay, so think about a city like Washington, D.C., which has about 700,000 people. Okay. And I know that you're in Maryland. Okay. Which has, I forget what, 7 million people, I believe. I
Hmm.
forget how many folks live in the state of Maryland. Needless to say,
Hmm.
um, so we're looking at 700 people, young kids in DC that have or that are on the spectrum, which
Hmm.
is a lot. Okay. And to your point, when there are only 365 days in the year, okay, how can one person be the resource for all those individuals? And that
Right.
number might be on the low ball. I mean, who knows? I mean, I tend to think the number is higher than what one is stating. I don't quite believe the number. I think it's more than 1%. Um,
Hmm.
so with your technology, with what you're doing and how you're helping Journey, okay, how fast or how quickly do you hope to see results from the rollout of Clone Gen?
Hmm. Well, what we're hoping is that, like I said, we can replicate. We're not trying to replace the current status quo.
Yeah.
We just want to give them more resources through our applied artificial intelligence capability to where you go from one counselor or 8 counselors to 70.
Yeah.
And now what that does is that enables the behavioral therapist, maybe it's becomes a tiered approach where the vetting that is so required and so essential on the initial level can be done by the AI folks, by us. And then that frees up the therapist to focus on different aspects of treatment,
Hmm.
and that we can shrink that 13 or 14-month waiting window down to 9 months or maybe to 6 months.
Okay.
But certainly, 14 months is that's just
It's
egregious.
it's too
And
long. Yes, it's
yeah,
crazy. And what
yeah.
about follow-ups? Because I'm sure after that initial visit with the professional, there are follow-ups. And is that
Yeah.
follow-up another year away?
Well, I mean, it's one of those things to where, once you get into the program, then you're a part of it, and now you're getting treatment 24 hours a week or 30 hours a week or whatever the diagnosis is. Some on the heavier side of the spectrum, they may require 40 hours of treatment a week. But again, it's all predicated on the assessment that's conducted, and that is conducted by someone who has a calendar that is chock full of clients or potential clients. And you can only see, as many people as you can see, and because you only got, 8 hours a day
Yeah.
to see a client. So
Yeah. I do think that what you're doing is a game changer. And I do think that it's much needed. And I am happy to support in any way that I can to ensure that other families who have children on the spectrum that they get some kind of assistance, even if the assistance is just helping a professional get them an earlier diagnosis so they can start the next
absolutely.
step in terms of helping the child learn to better communicate, to stay focused, but also calm their anxieties when an
Yeah.
attack goes on. Okay.
Yeah, like I said, we're not trying to replace anything. We're just trying to lend a helping hand and to shoulder some of the burden for all of the families like mine. And you know, we'll see where it takes us.
Yeah. So what's next then? So I think you mentioned it earlier. So what is next for you to get Clone Gen out to the community? I know you mentioned earlier about platforms like this,
Mhm.
but how can the audience, how can those who are listening to this podcast, watching this podcast, assist or offer some kind of help in getting the word out that, okay, this is something that can be used to help those
Sure.
professionals who are probably overworked?
Sure. It's real simple. Visit us on all the social media handles, whether it's X or Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, klongen.ai, or go to the website www.klongen.ai and sign up on our waiting list. We'll be putting the information out there. And if you've got input, or you think that there's another platform that would warrant us pursuing, to be there, let us know where we should go. We're working to partner now with some of the national level organizations, and we're hopeful that they'll see the merit in what we're doing. But yeah, just reach out to us, join the waiting list, sign up, and just tell other people about it, and just start following us
Mhm.
on social medias. Like it's klongen.ai, KLONGEN.ai, klongen.ai. That's our moniker, that's our handle, and we can go from there.
Ira, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you. I appreciate your time, and I thank you so much for what you're doing. I think it's so necessary, so essential for such a time as this. And it's kind of funny, I've known you, almost all my life. And to see, full circle how we're intersecting now at this juncture in our lives where, and when we met, we were, young kids, and now both got gray hair on our faces. I think it's so refreshing to share, a moment like this. So I just want to tell you, I am so proud of you. I salute you, and I look forward to a continued partnership with the Offshoot and you as well, sir.
Likewise. And for the listeners, again, you can catch the Offshoot on YouTube. You can catch us on Spotify, Amazon, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. Ira, again, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Have a great day.
I don't profess to